Okay guys, today we're going to learn how to multiply or divide rational expressions. This is part 2, okay? So from the previous lessons, we learned that when we multiply rational expressions, we multiply them straight across, okay? So for example, A times C is AC, and B times D is BD. And when it comes to division, we change the division symbol into multiplication, so it becomes AB times C over D. We're going to take a reciprocal of that, so D goes to the top and C goes to the bottom. Multiply straight across, then you have A over D times B over C. So keep these two properties in mind, okay? So let's look at number 1. Now in number 1, we have binomials and monomial. So our first instinct is to multiply, but don't, because if you multiply it out, it's going to make things more complicated. What we want to do is we can cancel things that look the same, like x minus 1 and x minus 1. That's gone, right? Then on top, I have 25 times 10 over 8 times 50. Here you can multiply it out and then reduce it further if you want to. Or if you don't want to, you could also say that 25 cancels out 50, right? Then you would have a 1 here and a 2 here. And then that means we have 10 over 8 times 2. And you can cancel the 10 and the 2. That gives you 5 and 1. So my final answer is 5 over 8. Okay, let's move on to number 2. In number 2 is division. So step 1, we're going to recopy everything except we're going to change division to multiplication and take the reciprocal of the second part. So 8v goes up and b minus 9, and the number 6 goes down. Okay, here if you look at here, the v minus 9 you can cancel out. The 8v you can cancel out. Then what we have is 2v squared on top over 6. And notice the 2 and the 6, you're allowed to cancel that out as well. Then that gives you what v squared over 3. And that's your final answers. Okay. Let's move on to number 3. In number 3 is division, so we're going to do the same thing like number 2. We're going to change it to multiplication and recopy everything else. Take the reciprocal of the second part. But if you look closely, there's nothing for you to cancel for the binomial terms. But for the monomial, we're allowed to cancel. You see the x and the x squared and the x is gone, right? So that means you have 1 x left. And then 6 and 4, that's 2 goes in here. So that means you have a 3 and a 2. So this part right here, you have 3x over 2, right? Now the second part, if we look carefully, we have a GCF here. So 12 and 20, it has 4 in common. X squared and x, it has an x in common. So the GCF is 4x. So you factor it out. Then you would have 3x minus 5. Same thing at the bottom, 27 and 45, we have a 9 in common. And x squared and x, we have an x in common. So the GCF is 9x. Then inside you should have 3x minus 5. So now after you factor it out, you see that they have the binomial match exactly. You're allowed to cancel that. Then on top we have 3 times 4 is 12x. Sorry. X times x is x squares. So 12x squares on top. Then we have 18x. And notice here the 12 and the 18, it's reducible by 6. So you would have 2 over 3. And x squared and x cancels out, then you would have an x on top. So this is your final answers. Okay? Okay, let's move on to number 4. So number 4, same thing as division. We're going to recopy and change it to multiplications. 10k cubed minus 20k squares. So by looking, you can cancel the 10, right? And then you should have 1 over k squares. here at the top, we have 10 and 20. So that means they have a 10 in common that we can factor out. K cubed and K squared, that means we can factor out K squares. Then in here we have K minus 2. 2 minus K is at the bottom. But if you look at this right here, these two terms, they're very similar, but they are not the same, okay? So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to rewrite the bottom so that way you see. Right? I just moved the negative K to the front and the positive 2 to the back. That's what I did, okay? I did not change anything. But we can cancel them out. It's because they're opposite of each other. They do not match exactly. So in order to make them match exactly, I'm going to take out a negative 1 at the bottom. And look, negative 1 times positive K will give you a negative K. And negative 1 times minus 2 will give you positive 2. So basically, I'm just rewriting the bottom part, except I take out the negative 1 so that way these two can match and we can cancel them out. Does that make sense? Okay? Because earlier it didn't match, so that's why we can't cancel them out. So now that they are matched, we are allowed to cancel them out. Then what you have left on top is 10K squares over negative K squares. So the K squared cancels out. Then you have 10 over negative 1, which is negative 10. Okay? So I hope you understand that part because I know it's kind of confusing. Good luck on your homework.